habitual and repeat drunk drivers that kill people on the highway driving while under the influence of alcohol. So this is something that you'll see news stories on, individuals that have a history of repeated DWI arrest, not being compliant with, driving without their driver's license, refusing to go to treatment. And so these individuals continue to get behind a vehicle, drive, and ultimately, unfortunately, will kill people, right? Vehicular homicide, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to provide some commentary, my thoughts about this situation on a local news story, essentially titled "Drunk Driver Pleads Guilty to Killing Two People in May 24th last year." So this is a pattern of behavior that you're going to see in this story that unfortunately culminates in the death of two innocent people. So I'm going to go ahead and play through the story, and I'll be pausing and share my thoughts on this. I have experience working with individuals, both mental health, alcohol, substance use type disorders or addictions, if you want to say that. So my perspective will be both, professionally my experience, but also some of my just personal thoughts and opinions about this.
Kayla Booth's first DWI was in 2016. A review of court documents show that she continued to have repeated arrests and failed to comply with court orders for months leading up to the deaths of Stephen and Margaret Pryor.
My prosecutors pled her to 20 years on each count of the manslaughter, which is the maximum, and 10 years on the felony DWI, which is the maximum.
An arrest warrant for Booth was issued in October 2023, 7 months before she killed the Pryors.
There were a couple of misdemeanor driving while license suspended, Class Bs, that were also dismissed as part of the plea deal. She'd already been in jail for a substantial period of time.
Here's a breakdown of Booth's offenses over the past 9 years. In 2016, she was arrested for her first DWI in Brazos County. In 2018, she was convicted. In 2021, she was arrested for her second DWI in San Patricio County. In February 2023, she was convicted. Then, in September 2023, she was arrested for a third DWI in Nueces County, this time with a blood alcohol level of more than twice the legal limit. Later that month, a motion to revoke was filed in San Patricio County, alleging Booth failed to report the recent arrest, failed to install a breathalyzer device in her vehicle, and that she failed to enroll in a DWI intervention program.
So I'm going to pause this and make some comments. So clearly you see a pattern here of repeated arrest, non-compliance, right? Failed to register with a treatment program, did not install a breathalyzer. My thoughts are, to the extent if she's on probation, probation officer, adult supervision, someone is there to confirm or supervise, verify that she's installing the breathalyzer, right? My thoughts on this, I have worked with individuals who have put breathalyzers in their vehicles, and I've heard this countless stories where individuals will talk about the workaround, right? They'll get someone else to blow into the breathalyzer for them, maybe a family member, a friend, neighbor. And my thoughts are, who are these individuals who would be willing to do this, right? What is their judgment? What's going on here, right? What are their values? The person's character, if you will. To have knowledge and know, if you can interpret a situation, what is your discernment? So if you have an individual who is asking you to blow into a breathalyzer, by the way, right? Do you not see a bigger picture? This individual has that breathalyzer there for a reason, in order to start the vehicle, to prevent them from driving while under the influence. So that's a whole other issue of breathalyzers installed into vehicles. But clearly she did not comply with this. And also she didn't see the value in seeking treatment. Because the thing is, an individual, not only one, has to see something as a problem. Do I internalize my behavior as a problem? In this case, abusing alcohol. Two, even if I do see it as a problem, do I have readiness to change? Do I see the value in seeking treatment for it? So this is a very mixed bag of issues, and I'm going to talk about later in this video what an alcohol use disorder is. Yeah, and like I said, I'm going to give some pretty strong opinions and feelings, personally, professional, etc. So let's go ahead and continue playing this video.
In October 2023, the San Patricio County judge issued a warrant for Booth's arrest. After that warrant was issued, Booth was arrested 2 more times for driving with a suspended license in Nueces County. Despite that warrant, Booth remained free. Then, on May 14, 2024, she was arrested for the accident that killed the Pryors. Stephen died that day, and Margaret weeks later. I spoke with District Attorney Jimmy Granberry about Booth's history. How do you think it got to this point?
But she had not been convicted of 3 DWIs. That was pending, and she was on bond for the 3rd, which was going to be the felony at the time.
Yeah, if you have a good attorney, you can
2
keep
murder
these
charges
DWIs
and 2
kinda
charges for
pending.
driving with a suspended license were dismissed in the plea deal on Thursday.
We had lots of leverage over her with the, she took 20 years plus 10. Now they're running concurrent.
Apparently not
That's
enough
still a pretty
leverage
good chunk.
before she
Granberry
killed 2
says
people.
he cannot respond to why, despite the active warrant out of San Patricio County, Booth remained on the street. Chris 6 News will continue to dig into this.
So I think you get the idea about this individual, right? So I imagine people who are going to watch this video are probably going to have some pretty strong feelings on this issue. My thoughts are, when you look at someone who's convicted of manslaughter, vehicular homicide, and there's different degrees based on intention. Did you intend to go out to murder somebody or kill somebody? So there's different levels, right? Or just what a person, how they can be convicted. But here's my thoughts. This individual has a pattern of behavior, clearly is not seeing any value in prioritizing the public safety. You can talk about how when people are under the influence of alcohol, sure, they're disinhibited. They're probably not going to have the best judgment. But there are certain things with this within how you look at it, because I know a lot of individuals who over the years have struggled with alcohol use disorders, if you want to use the older term, alcoholism. Some individuals would have rules and limits, right? If I'm drinking, I'm not going to get into a vehicle. I'm going to use a taxi cab, Uber, I'll have somebody drive me. So yeah, I've actually seen some alcoholics that even had some ethics, right? I'm not getting into a vehicle. I could harm someone. So it is possible that despite having an alcohol use disorder, or if you want to say alcoholic, some individuals still had a threshold, some ethics, if you want to say morals, if you will. And morals essentially are ideas of right and or wrong behavior within a culture or society. So this individual, sad to say, for whatever reasons are going on with her, she did not internalize the value of other people's safety. She's not being considerate. She dismisses treatment. She's given the opportunity for treatment, does not register or sign up for it. There's court-ordered programs, adult supervision. My questions would be, why is there not a more aggressive intervention here to ensure she's going to a treatment facility? But that being said, even if you do court-order people into treatment, doesn't mean that recovery will take. They will get out of treatment and go right back to drinking again, or as soon as they don't perceive a threat anymore. So there's different motivations as to why somebody might stop using alcohol or drugs. But even for some individuals, even the threat of legal consequences, it's not enough. They're going to keep drinking. So my thought is, before you take the first drink, if you know very well this is not a problem of intelligence. Individuals like this, they know very well and they clearly understand that there is a risk. It's dangerous. It's physically hazardous to operate a vehicle and drive. They know they could kill somebody themselves. Despite that, they do not see the value in safety. They do not, by default, they do not care. So my thoughts are, if you know that you can getting behind a vehicle, the wheel of a vehicle, and drive in on a highway, residential street, freeway, wherever, if you know that could possibly result in someone else's death and you do it anyways, that's intentional to me. You could argue that's murder, right? Even though she probably did not know the individuals that she killed, right? Due to her recklessness, her negligence, just a failure to have any limits here, right? So let's look into what it is to have an alcohol use disorder. And I'm going to read through some of these. And while I read through this, we'll kind of look at this individual's behaviors. So let's get into what an alcohol use disorder. So the DSM-5 Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, if you can see this one right here, I keep one on my desk, has essentially 11 criteria for what constitutes an alcohol use disorder. And I want to give the definition, and then I'm going to add some context and some, my thoughts about this, having worked with individuals with alcohol use disorders, substance use disorders, mental health issues, and so on. So an alcohol use disorder essentially is a problematic problem that is leading to clinically significant impairment or distress as manifested by at least two of the following criteria I'm about to read with you. And this would be over a 12-month period of your life. So up here you can see I have these criteria pulled up. And let's look at the first one. Alcohol is often taken in larger amounts over a longer period of time than was intended. So sure, what can that look like? Well, I'm going to have 1 or 2 beers, right? Or bourbon and cokes, whatever it is. And that turns into 11 or 12, right? So it's always a bit more than you that intended to. So that's one of the criteria. And a lot of people might say, yeah, I've done that one before, right? 2, there's a persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control alcohol use. Now, definitely with this lady in this video, whether or not she had a desire to stop drinking is debatable. It doesn't appear so based on at least the information provided. She refused treatment. So whether she tried to cut down, who knows? But her efforts clearly were unsuccessful to control her alcohol use, despite legal consequences, despite the severity of the risk, right? 2 people were killed because of her behavior. Number 3, a great deal of time is spent in activities necessary to obtain alcohol or use alcohol or recover from its effects. So if you've ever taken sick leave from work, used that PTO because you had a hangover, yeah, it's taking you time to recover from the effects of alcohol, right? Or what about on a more, I guess, more involved situation or more severe, if you will, individuals who have a more severe alcohol use disorder, yeah, they might be first thing in the morning, they're already considering, okay, how can I get something to drink if you're looking at people that are living on the streets, right? Or just individuals who maybe are not, that impaired toward as far as the social aspect of their life. They have a job. You could say they're functional or sufficiently functional enough to keep a job. They have a house. They may be seeking out and promoting social and recreational activities that gives them a reason to drink, right? So they're seeking out activities that helps them to be able to justify drinking alcohol. So 4, a craving or a strong desire or urge to use alcohol. So you could say triggers, craving and triggers and within context. So yeah, so definitely people do crave alcohol. It is a drug, and so there can be cravings. There's issues of tolerance and withdrawal, and we can talk about things like dopamine and hear a lot about dopamine that has an influence, or it's part of the context landscape. But when you look at addiction and the progression with a drug like alcohol. So there is a recurrent alcohol use, that results in failure to fulfill role obligations at work, school, or home. So yeah, if you took sick leave because you have a hangover, man, I got to stay home today. Yeah, you're not fulfilling your work obligations, or maybe you're supposed to do something else within your family or other activities that are being neglected because you don't feel good, or alcohol, or you're spending time drinking instead, right? So this can affect work, school, and home. And I have worked with individuals that, quite frankly, their use of alcohol results in them neglecting activities with family, their children, their spouse, being more present. The job is being affected. And then you could just say other things, maybe people in school, right, college, etc. It undermines things. Or sometimes it results in some things just completely being eliminated, right? People drop out of college, they lose their job, etc. If you're a truck driver and you get a DWI, yeah, good luck. You're probably not going to have a job for too long. Okay. 6, continued alcohol use despite having persistent or reoccurrent social or interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of alcohol. That's right. So this is some impairment, right? Maybe you're having problems with relationships with people, a strained relationship, a marriage, your family, coworkers at work, right? And so on. So this is causing issues with your interpersonal situations, life, relationships, etc. So you definitely can see that. People who have a use of alcohol. Now this lady in this video, I would imagine that people in her personal life, I would suspect there's definitely some strained relationships. Could you imagine if she was your family member, how that would put strain on your relationship with her? Probably be some resentments, anger, a lot of concern. By default, creating a lot of stress. People probably trying to get her into some treatment, and so on. Okay, 7. Important social, occupational, or recreational activities are given up or reduced because of alcohol use. Well, sure, with this lady, I would be surprised if I would feel surprised, be surprised if she was maintaining employment towards the end of her situation where she kills up to the point where she murdered 2 people. I call it murder, right? So because the intention of knowing you could kill somebody, get in the car anyways, right? So what was her situation? Was she actually holding down a job? Heck, maybe she was. I would be surprised though if she was. How are you going to maintain a job when you're that unstable? So definitely occupational, right? Again, recreational activities like exercise, taking care of yourself, they're going to be reduced or eliminated. Number 8, recurrent alcohol use in situations in which it's physically hazardous. So yeah, I've known individuals who worked with machinery, mechanics, other jobs of employment that you're doing or performing tasks that involve situations where you have to be very careful, right? People could get hurt. OSHA, right? Occupational Safety Hazard or Health, whatever, administration, if I got the acronym correct. So yeah, safety at work. People can get freaking hurt, man. And that's why they drug test people. Hey, are you under the influence using drugs? 0 tolerance. They cannot afford that. So personal life, recreational, social activities, it's similar. So driving, obviously, under the influence is physically hazardous, as we've seen with this lady. Her pattern of DWIs, being pulled over, charged with a DWI, whether it's pending or not, clearly where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Just because you have a good attorney that can delay a disposition of, what is the disposition? Are you convicted or dismissed, whatever, doesn't mean there's not a problem. She clearly had a pattern here. So getting behind a wheel, driving, physically hazardous, as evidenced by this video, and then other situations where the same thing has happened, people being killed. Okay, number 9, alcohol use is continued despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurrent physical or psychological problem that is likely to have been caused or exacerbated by alcohol. So I see this one a lot too. Individuals clearly can understand, they know that drinking alcohol does not support their health. It doesn't support their psychological, mental health, or physical health. If it's just like we say physical health, you could say like your liver enzymes are elevated when you do a metabolic panel. So your liver is being affected. Some people get cirrhosis because of drinking alcohol. In some cases, they need a liver transplant. So despite that, yeah, they drink alcohol anyways. Doesn't matter. They know it undermines their sleep. It suppresses deep sleep, like REM cycle sleep, and which also undermines mood regulation, so depression, anxiety. So people know this. Well, this is not helping my mental health. It does not help my depression. It makes me more anxious, right? Because it's not supporting good sleep. They know it's not a good idea to drink, and then you're going to take prescribed medication. So they do not see the value in this information. It's not important. So it does not drive any decisions in terms of what they feel or what they think and feel, and then having a different behavior. Hey, maybe I need to get treatment. I need help to stop drinking. So this situation is pretty common, unfortunately. Despite having knowledge that this damages their health and their life in general, they continue to do it anyways. Hence, it's a disorder. The operative word here is disorder. It causes disorder in your life. So criteria 10 and 11 often are a bit misunderstood in terms of how relevant they are as to what constitutes, do you have a problem with alcohol? The truth is, the 11th criteria, which is withdrawal, I'm going to get into that here more in a minute, is not necessarily required in order for you to have a problem. And I'm going to get into that here in a minute, like I mentioned. So 10 is tolerance as defined by either of the following. There is a need for markedly increased amounts of alcohol to achieve intoxication or the desired effect. So sure, when I was younger, if I drank 3 beers, I'd feel a buzz, right? And then as you get older and you've been drinking more, maybe it's 6 beers now or 6 drinks to achieve or get that effect of feeling the euphoria or the buzz, to use a slang term, right, to get the desired effects. You get the idea. So there's then a markedly diminished effect with continued use of the same amount of alcohol. So this is true of other drugs too. So this is a progression over time that you will develop a tolerance. So that's part of the process and progression. As a result of this, some people are more susceptible or vulnerable than others to what degree and or severity of what type of withdrawal symptoms you can get. So there's severe, more acute withdrawal symptoms with alcohol that are very dangerous. In fact, alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs to quit cold turkey because of the acute withdrawal symptoms could kill you. Without a medically supervised detox, usually a Librium taper, I believe it's a benzo, so they taper you off gradually to where you don't have the symptoms that I'm going to mention. So these withdrawal symptoms definitely can be delirium tremens, or you get shakes, seizures, varying degrees of seizures. Grand mal seizure, if I pronounce that correctly, is a worse type, which can kill you. I've known people, I've seen this. You can die from it. So people have had seized up, fallen down, broken bones, lucky to be alive. I mean, just a very dangerous situation. So some people will look at it this way, and here's the confusion with criteria 10 and 11. Well, I don't have acute withdrawals. I can just stop and nothing happens. I'm fine. Well, technically, if you have a hangover, that's a bit of withdrawing, right? So you may not have acute, severe withdrawals that put you in imminent medical danger where you could die. But that doesn't necessarily have to be required to indicate you have a problem with alcohol. In fact, a lot of people do not have severe acute alcohol withdrawal. They can put it down and then go forward and just not have a drink again without having dangerous withdrawals that will kill them. They end up being okay, in other words. They're physically or medically able to be stable going forward. That being said, they still have a lot of problems. Their relationships are falling apart. They could be losing a job. They could have those elevated liver enzymes I'm talking about, other health problems being created or exacerbated, and other psychological issues that are happening. They can still get behind the wheel of a vehicle and kill somebody. Doesn't matter whether you have acute withdrawal symptoms or not. In the old DSM-4, they would distinguish between alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence, so the physical dependence, if you will. So not everybody's going to have this situation going on. So today it's more of it's called an alcohol use disorder, and you kind of, if you want to say, look at it on a spectrum, varying degrees of how it causes impairment. So if you just have 2 of these criteria of the 11, that's a mild alcohol use disorder. If you have, I believe, let me scroll down here, so if you have 4 or 5 of these symptoms over a 12-month period, that would be a moderate alcohol use disorder. So 6 or more, it's a severe alcohol use disorder, and it doesn't matter, it's any of those 11. If you have 6 or more, that's a severe alcohol use disorder. So you get the idea, right? This situation, some of the points I'm making here. So you get the idea, right? So this is a situation, it depends on how you look at it as to whether you have a problem with it. And this is a thing a lot of people deal with themselves when they look at their relationship with drink and alcohol. We're not all the same with it, for being honest. But some individuals, they may view it as a problem depending on where we place value. Do you value physical health? Do you value relationships? Is your job important, etc.? So depending on how we internalize values of things in our lives, we may or may not see it as a problem. Maybe we do. And if we do see it as a problem, are we ready to make changes with it? So if you do have a pattern, or what is a threshold? 2 DWIs, a third one. How do you control for that? How can you stop somebody from getting into a car? So what are your options? You lock somebody up forever. You're too much of a threat. You're a danger to society. You're like a virus, if you will. We need to quarantine you, to use the word quarantine. So do we quarantine alcoholics that do not control themselves or cannot manage themselves? And because they are a threat to society, they could kill people, just like somebody with a virus. Let's say if it's not just COVID, let's say it was the plague, right? Back in medieval times, whatever historical period. Yeah, you're going to quarantine a person because if you let them around people, you're too dangerous. You're going to cause a lot of deaths, right? So depends on how you look at it. Do you quarantine an alcoholic, right? And the justification would be you're a danger to society. You're going to end up your behavior will result in the death of people. So I don't know, maybe we would quarantine alcoholics because we view it in a similar way, right? So this is very subjective. What is the price of freedom? Where are the thresholds? I mean, even this lady, she has rights. She had a lawyer defending her that kind of stretched out all these court cases. In the meantime, she's out there driving and boozing it up until she killed people. So, what if we had a lawyer represent a person with a virus who was testing positive for a virus, delaying and delaying and delaying that allowed the person to be free in the meantime, right? Spreading a virus, and then people die. So I know these are different things, and I'm doing this comparison on purpose to challenge people to think. The price of freedom, how do we look at what is a problem to society? What box do we put it in? Are the people that were killed by this lady, are their lives any less value? Are they any less of a victim than, say, someone who dies of a result of other situations where someone's behavior resulted in someone's death, right? Whether overtly on purpose or not intended. So these are just some of my thoughts, personal thoughts, and some of them are just based on professional experience. Looking at these situations. So what do you think? Is this murder? Or it's not murder because she did not intend to do it. There's a pattern here. It's reasonable to understand this person, this lady, knows that 5 + 5 = 10, right? Duh. Basic math. She knows that it was dangerous to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. She understands that could result in her death or someone else's. And she has poor judgment. She's making bad decisions, right? Some people might argue, well, she couldn't help it because she had impaired judgment. She has an alcohol problem. Yeah, well, you can put different explanations on it, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And a person who makes a decision to take a drink of alcohol knowing that it will impair them, not wanting to seek treatment for it to get help, and continues to get in a vehicle. My opinion, you could throw that in the category of murder. Is that vehicular homicide? Does it matter what the means of killing somebody is with? You use a knife, a gun, your fist, a vehicle. So yeah, you're weaponizing a vehicle if you get behind it under the influence of alcohol. So share your thoughts, opinions. Maybe you have other ideas about this situation or these topics, which is fine. I hope everybody's having a good day. Thank you for watching the video. My name's James Hunter.